What's up, everyone, and welcome to Variant the Podcast. This is actually our last podcast of 2019.
Yes, it is. Final podcast 2019, 10 episodes in, and it has been a lot of fun.
2.5 months.
I know.
That's really
weird. Crazy.
That went by quick.
And thanks to all of you guys for watching and listening along with us. We've been really kind of overwhelmed at the response to the new podcast. So thank you guys for coming along with us, and we look forward to a very successful 2020
for sure,
as we have a lot of big plans for the podcast going into the new year.
I'm glad so many people have been digging it. Like, I get a lot of tweets and stuff, and we see comments, on our YouTube videos and stuff like that of how many people are enjoying it. Like, keep doing what you're doing, and it's really encouraging for us. I'm like, okay, you like it, sure, we'll do it.
We'll keep rambling. But in the new year, we've got plans to bring on guests for the first time. So we're going to be bringing on, this was the first few episodes, we kind of wanted to stretch our legs,
get a groove,
kind of get into a groove, kind of get a feel for things, and also we're developing several other things simultaneously. So, but in the new year, we have plans to bring on some guests, some creators,
writers, artists,
and do a lot of fun new things. We've got some segments planned and lined up for the podcast in the new year. So, but again, thanks you guys for helping make this show success out the gate,
and also get this variant logo lit up,
because
it does light up. It does light up. We just haven't done it yet. So our bad.
That's true. That's true. Another thing that's important to note is that this is also going to be the final Variant podcast episode that is going to post and show up on the main Variant channel. So after this episode in 2020, when we come back in 2020, which is while I'm mentioning it, it's going to be on January 10th. The next podcast, the first podcast of 2020, will be on January 10th. And when that comes back, that will be, of course, on all of the audio channels, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. But it is also, the video version of it is only going to be posting from here out on the Variant Podcast YouTube channel. So if you're not already subscribed on the Variant Podcast YouTube channel and you enjoy watching the podcast, make sure you get over there and subscribe to that and click that notification bell about 16 times because of the way YouTube sets it up. So make sure you get that set up so as soon as we come back on January 10th and everything we got going on. So that's the other important thing to note.
For sure. And we'll remind you on the first episode back January 10th, because I'm sure not everyone's going to watch this. And, so we were like, where the heck did it go? I like the video format. And then we'll be like, hey, remember we said, but you don't remember because you weren't listening.
Right, yeah. And the first Variant episode in the new year might be around January 15th. Because we've got some planning going into the new year. We're going to be doing some things early in the year. So we're actually going to have a little bit of a pause on the Variant regular show.
We may have like one video go up here and there, depending.
Possibly.
Yeah, we might be throwing some
possibly.
stuff up.
We're trying to see where we're going to land. But when we come back, we'll also be reminding everyone about the podcast and that it's not going to be on the channel. So we will be reminding, but important to note for right now.
But for today, we thought it'd be fun to look back at 2019 and talk about some of our favorite things that happened all year long, whether it be comic books, movies, TV, video games, whatever each of us enjoyed the most. And we both have long lists, but the rule was to narrow it down to our top 5.
Top 5, which was not easy.
Very hard. I actually solidified it just before we pressed record, and I'm still on the fence about it. I may cheat.
But it was a big year.
It was a very big year. I feel like we say that every year. You're like, this year was so awesome. It's just because you're just so in it all the time, especially for what we do. We're always posting content, and we love what we do, obviously, but sometimes I feel like the one downside, and I'm not complaining at all, but the one downside is, since you're always covering it and talking about it, you kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Yes.
And you don't really get to sit back and just kind of, soak it all in sometimes.
Yeah.
So when we do stuff like this, it's like, oh, that was great. Oh, I did really enjoy that and stuff, because it's like, we'll review this and then it's on to the next movie, or it's on to the next TV show. So this was really fun. It took me a while. It took me like a few hours. I was kind of going through like all the comics I read. I'm like, what movies did come out 2019? What shows did come out? So, but I think I've got mine. What about
your
you?
list?
Yeah.
I think, I've got my list for sure. It wasn't that hard for me to narrow down my top 5. It was just, there was a lot of things that really wanted to work its way into that top 5.
No, yeah, that's for sure.
So I think each of us have some honorable mentions.
I have a lot of honorable mentions. Yeah. I read a lot, especially comics. I read a lot of comics, obviously. So that one was the hardest one, I think, for me, because, you got hundreds, if not thousands of titles every week, every month. Where shows and movies, there's a lot, but not nearly as much as books. So that was a hard one for me.
Yeah, because there's so much content.
There's
so much content, and it's like what we've been talking about recently. Like every year, seemingly, there's just more. It's just more and more and more. And in some ways, some of it is also getting refined and is getting better. It's getting bigger. We're constantly talking about the golden age, the new golden age of nerddom that we're in.
Sure, yeah.
And there's just more and more things to look at and say, this was awesome, but oh my God, this was awesome. And oh, this was awesome.
Do you think we'll look, how like now we have the golden age of comics where it's like gold, silver, bronze, modern, right? We have those genres. Do you think like 60 years from now, it'll be like we just said, or you just said, the golden age of like nerddom, then we go into the silver age, then we go into the bronze age. Like it actually goes into ages.
I think that honestly, history is going to look back at this in terms of like geekdom. Right. I think this is going to be considered the nerd renaissance. I'm coining that right now. If no one else has used that, I'm coining it right now. We are in the nerd renaissance.
I'm into it.
Where just geek things across the board are really finding their groove. They're expanding. They're exploring new territories. Yep. We're innovating. We're using technologies to mix with all of these, the sci-fi and all these things that, geeks have been and we've been into and have been exploring in stories for so long. Well, now we're merging with all these new technology and all these story formats.
Because the tech is there now. Yeah.
How comics has become basically the modern version of mythology.
Stan Lee even said a long time ago, one of the main reasons it took so long for a live-action Spider-Man movie to get made was because the technology wasn't there yet.
Right.
So, now that we could pretty much do whatever we want as far as, putting superheroes on the big screen and making, all these things exist that don't really exist with green screen and all that stuff, sky's the limit, and we're definitely using it. We're taking advantage of it, and I love it.
And the other big thing too is that the money's there now.
Yeah.
Right? So now we're seeing these things now are transitioning from the fantasy of the page or a video game or what have you, and they're transitioning into the real world with theme parks taking a hold of these things and creating them in real life. So like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which we just came from, what Universal has done with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, what Disney's doing now with Marvel and all of these things. We're seeing it become real. So all across the board, there's so many different facets of it, and that's why I say I think this is we will look back and people will say that was the Renaissance period for geekdom. And whether we execute it into like expert level.
And maybe Varian will be mentioned in the history books.
God, wouldn't that be nice? We'll see.
But let's get into it.
Let's dive in. You go first. So what we'll do is we'll go back and forth.
Okay.
No particular order. These are each of our top favorite things from geekdom in 2019.
All right. So I'm going to lead off with one of my favorite comic book titles because Variant, the heart and soul of it will always be comic books. Variant. Yes. So The Flash by Josh Williamson. I love this title so much. It was one of my favorite titles in 2018 as well. He's been on the book for so long since Rebirth kicked off.
Yeah.
And he's doing such a good job. This year we got Flash Year 1, which basically gave us, like a little bit of an origin, it's not like a full-blown origin story for Barry, but it kind of brought us back a little bit. We met like an alternate version, Barry Allen, and, kind of gave us little bits and pieces of his roots again, and just culminating in this really good story with Turtle. And I'm just really digging it. He's doing stuff with like Godspeed again, which is one of the coolest characters to be invented in comics, especially villains within the last several years. So much so that he's appeared several times on The Flash and CW. And he's just doing a really good job. He's been on the title for almost 100 issues now. That tells you a lot.
It's crazy.
That tells you a lot because DC or Marvel, any of the big publishers, will not keep you on a book unless the sales are up. Right. So for him to still be on this book for almost 100 issues in and no real sign of like ending before 100, that tells you that right there. I'm not the only one enjoying this book.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt.
That's definitely one of my favorite titles of 2019.
Also the fact that DC moved him over to Superman Batman.
Yes, which has also been fantastic. It's another one of my favorite titles. It didn't make the list here because it's only 4 issues in, but I do really enjoy that title.
That's a solid ad, and we've talked about it many times on the show, but I also want to say how happy we are for Josh Williamson. We have actually known Josh since long before he got called up to DC.
Yeah.
He was writing his own books with Image with Birthright.
Birthright, yeah.
And we kind of knew him, and so we were just thrilled to see him move into DC and take over the Flash book. I remember when he first took over and we were talking about to him and he was giving us little clues like, oh, there's this coming. And he had just put out and introduced Godspeed.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, yeah, man. And then right after that, Godspeed ended up in the series, the TV series.
Dude.
And he was like on cloud 9.
It was so crazy. I remember we interviewed him at San Diego Comic-Con, and I think 2016, and at the DC booth, it was 2 floors that year, and in the middle of the show floor, a big Godspeed banner right over the DC booth. And I asked him, I was like, dude, how surreal is that you're seeing that? He's like, it's pretty freaking crazy, but you want to know what's even crazier than that? That people have already made Legos of Godspeed.
Yes.
He's like, he goes, for me, if your character gets a Lego, you've made it. It's like a Funko Pop or like a Lego. You've made it.
And also seeing people cosplay your character.
Yes, he did mention that as well. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So just super thrilled to see his success. And I hope that only continues because he's not only a great writer, but he's a good dude.
Yeah, and he's been doing. You could really tell he loves the Flash too, because even before 2019, within just over the course of his Flash run, he's been getting into like he addressed who the fastest Flash is. Saying that Wally definitively is the fastest Flash, and even so much to breaking down the top fastest characters in the DC universe. He's just adding a lot more depth and rich history to Flash in the DC universe, and I'm digging it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That's a solid ad.
So with that, you're up. You're
okay,
next.
So the first thing I'm gonna roll out is Avengers Endgame.
But of course,
you went comics, I'm going movies. I'm gonna mix it up. So I'm gonna say Avengers Endgame and the conclusion of the Infinity Saga in the MCU. That was the culmination of 10 years of storytelling. It's never been done. It was an unparalleled feat in terms of storytelling in cinema. And they were able to wrap it up in such a strong way. And for those of you who, I don't want to hear any spoiler anything because this movie's been out for almost a year.
Yeah, no, legitimately.
But for it to conclude with such an emotional moment with the death of Tony Stark and Iron Man, and in such a powerful way, for him to conclude his hero's journey and his arc, and Captain America at the same time, for both those two characters, for them to culminate and bring that together. And it had its little moments where it was kind of like, I don't know about that, but overall, what the Russos pulled off with every movie that they really helmed for the MCU, but just the way they were able to bring that all together and introduce so many new things while simultaneously concluding and tying up so many other things, it was really, really a remarkable feat.
Yeah,
and it was just so cool. Growing up, just loving movies, it's always been one of my favorite things to go see a film that the audience is really hyped up for, and to go there on opening weekend when people are at their like peak excitement.
For sure.
Because you get in that theater and it's just this community experience where everybody is playing off each other's energy, and when the movie is good and it lands on top of that energy, it's just so freaking fun.
When Cap got Mjolnir,
at
the end,
dude,
the whole
the place
theater was
erupts.
Like, yeah,
man. And I was there with him.
So
it was so fun, and I wanted to just send a thank you card to the Russos and to Kevin Feige, because it was just it wasn't just well done, but it just gave fans just such a fun moment and a fun memory in I guess you could say in geekdom.
For sure, yeah.
So that's my first pick.
Well, that actually, since that's one of my picks as well. So rather than bringing it up later, we'll stay on the topic right now, so we don't have to keep going back to it. That is one of my number 5 picks as well. And again, like you said, I am a massive Marvel fan, MCU fan, and I have many fond memories that I actually remember going to the comic book shop to see the first Iron Man. Like I remember being in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, making my hour drive all the way to Wellington, Florida, to see it with you and my girlfriend at the time and everything like that. So very, very fond memories. And just again, 10 years, nothing like this has ever been done before.
No.
That's the craziest thing. Like in movie form, the fact that they basically made this episodic, but in film, and did it like almost flawlessly.
Right.
Like obviously nothing's perfect. You can nitpick here and there or say, yeah, what about that Thor movie or what about Iron Man 3? But like you're talking about like 20 plus films, and for I think most people would agree that like 90% of them are great.
Yes.
Like, and then to wrap it end cap it so well with Tony Stark's arc coming full circle. Because I don't know about you, but I was like, they're gonna kill Cap. They're gonna kill Cap. Like that was my main thing.
We talked about that, yeah, quite a bit.
And then at the end of the movie, they're like, no, that Iron Man's the one to go. And when they did it, you're like, but that makes so much more sense because he started it and he's gonna end it. And as far as that first 10 years go, his whole arc came full circle. Then all the amazing moments with Captain America. Like I just said, him lifting Thor's hammer. Just all the characters, that massive. I get chills when. I'm literally nerding out right now. When you see all those Doctor Strange and all the Avengers and Wakanda and everyone coming through.
On your left.
You see them all lining up and Captain America is just standing there. And then the camera goes in close on him.
Yeah.
Avengers, pause, assemble. And then they just I got goosebumps just saying it. It was so good.
It was so good.
I love so good.
That. And watching the behind the scenes and hearing them talk about how they landed on that scene, how they were doing something else entirely and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And they went back. And that's what I love so much about the Russos. And they were they worked so hard to make sure, they were so intent on getting it right and making sure this was the epic culmination that all the fans not only wanted but deserved. And man, they pulled it off, and it was just so fun. Even the end where Happy Hogan is sitting with Iron Man's daughter.
Yes.
And he's that sweet moment where he's like, your dad liked cheeseburgers too. Bringing it all the way back full circle to Iron Man 1 when he picks him up at the airport after going through that ordeal in the Middle East. And you're just like, man, they just
Deep
nailed
dives.
it.
Yeah, just everything.
Nailed it.
I gotta be honest too with that cheeseburger moment because I have a 2-year-old daughter myself,
right.
And then the fact that that was like a deep pull from the first Iron Man when he got back, when he escaped with Mark 1, the cheeseburger reference. I'm just like I teared up.
Yeah,
I was just like I don't even care. It was just so good because we're so invested. It's so you almost feel like these characters to a certain extent because I grew up with them literally 10 years. I was a whole decade younger when I first started this journey.
Yeah.
So it's just I love it. I think it's definitely going to be one of those, just especially the first 10 years of the MCU. It's going to be one of those things almost like the Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, where it's going to be one of those franchises that it's going to stay iconic forever. And
agree.
like when our kids are like 30, 40 or whatever, they're gonna be like, this is, it's gonna be like their Back to the Future, their Indiana Jones.
Yeah. And I think it's cool that, again, we'll be able to look back and be like, we were there.
Yes.
We were there. We saw every one of these in theater. We got to experience this with
and then the culmination
of
it, again with that big battle scene with Cap saying Avengers Assemble and the whole audience simultaneously being like, yeah, man. It's so good. See, like if you're as nerdy about this stuff as we are, you definitely have to see, especially movies that bookend stuff like that,
right.
You have to see them in theaters and opening weekend too, because that's when all the diehards go. It's so much fun.
It's
an experience.
So fun. And for me, I've been doing it since I was a kid, and I will probably continue to do that. I have friends that and other filmmakers that I know that they avoid the theater on opening weekend now.
Oh, it's fun.
And for me,
experience.
I can't. It's part of the whole experience, and it's just I love that community. And so for for the fans, for nerddom, it was just such a fun thing. And I don't know, we, of course, you hope, but we don't know that we're ever going to get something like that replicated.
No,
that 10-year run.
That is a high bar.
Yeah, that's a really, really heady thing to go into.
I don't even know if the MCU itself is going to be able to continue that level.
Right.
That's crazy.
And again, you hope so, and I know they certainly hope so.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to have gotten it once, I think we should all be really thankful that we got it, and it was just as good and as fun and as well cast as it was.
And then the fact, I've been reading these characters since I basically could read,
right.
since I was really, I was in elementary school. So I've been reading them for, like my whole life, been watching them in their animated series. And then to see such good representations of them for so long, for a decade long, and end on a really good note. Because, a lot of times movies falter at the end where you're like, that didn't end so well. But, I was very satisfied with all of it. And we could rant about this all day.
Yeah.
But
I would go even further. More often than not, the ending of these type of epic, shows or stories, they fall short of expectations. And I think Endgame came as close to nailing it as you can come without being perfect.
I loved it. I loved it. And it's gonna, like you said, I feel like we're repeating ourselves, but it's going to be something that we talk about for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I agree.
But we agree on that one. So should I go on a new one?
Well, now you're 2 down, so I got to
okay,
add
you
one
gotta
here.
go. Okay,
So that otherwise we're going to give you lopsided. So I'm going to add a comic.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's actually 2 comics.
All right.
And it's Jonathan Hickman's return or coming on to X-Men with House of X and Powers of X.
So if it's 2 comics, are you getting rid of 2 picks in one?
No, it's 1 because I count it as 1.
You're combining.
I'm gonna count it as 1.
So you're cheating.
I'm cheating.
Okay.
So Jonathan Hickman taking over the X-Men and doing House of X and Powers of X, or Ho-X and Po-X as it's being called.
Ho-X and Po-X. Yeah.
But him coming on and just revamping, and it's not even a revamp. I view it as like a revitalization of the X-Men franchise in comics, and just tying together years and years and years of reboots and redos and shakeups and all this kind of thing. And taking all of that and bringing it together, tying it together in this borderline Herculean way that I don't think anyone anticipated that they would be able to pull off. And then setting the franchise on this brand new course that arguably is going to go down, could go down. I'll say could, because we're still early.
Yeah.
Could go down as one of the best eras for X-Men ever.
Yeah.
So he's just done such an incredible job. House of X and Powers of X, both. And it's really one story.
Yes.
Which is why I count them together. It's one story. But it was so well written. I'm not going to get into detail because anything we mention, we do want you guys to read. We want you to see. So we're not going to get spoilery. But it was just so well written. It was so well told. It was so well planned and then executed. And he's just moving that now into the regular X-Men series and some of these others, X-Force and so on. And it's so good to have a guiding hand over the X-Men franchise as a whole again. That is, he has clearly he has a course and a destination in mind. And so to first, just the fun of reading those 2 books, and then also seeing where he's going to take X-Men. That's definitely, in terms of comics, that was definitely one of the highlights of 2019 for me.
Yeah, I think I really did enjoy what he's been doing with X-Men, with House of X, Powers of 10, all that stuff. It's definitely a task because before he got a hold of it, X-Men was a little all over the place. They had basically the joke was, X-Men has a book for every color because they had X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue, black, red, pink, yellow, orange. They just had so many different books, and it was a little all over the place. It's been a long time since they kind of consolidated and redid continuity, because naturally with all comic books, I know a lot of people complain, and even I'm at fault too. I complain a lot of the time too that there's a lot of reboots and stuff. But over the course of years, with so many writers, and for a lot of the times, a writer's really only on a book for like a year, 2, 3, if they're really successful, like a Snyder or a Josh Williamson. So these writers are really not even on the book that long. So it gets lost. It's almost like the game Telephone. Like it kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Very
things
much so.
Don't really, continuity doesn't all line up. So by nature of the beast, you do have to reset every few years just to be like, all right, let's rope it all back. So I think he did a really good job with that. I think he tried and did pull a lot of the core elements from X-Men that people love. The fact that he's setting new rules, like this is how many Omega level mutants there are. There's not going to be any more until he basically in a nice roundabout way, he said, until I'm off of X-Men.
Until I'm off the book,
So there's a clear path going forward. I just love everything he's been doing, and the art's been awesome on the books. So I think, I will say I like the X-Men. I do like them a lot. I'd never liked them as much as Batman or Spider-Man. Those are like my 2.
Right.
But obviously I like the X-Men, the animated series and stuff like that. But even not being X-Men being my number 1 comic book franchise or series, I'm very excited to see where this continues into 2020 and 2021, because you could definitely see he's got some plans. This was just the beginning.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part about it for me, and as far as the X-Men as characters and them as their own kind of self-contained world, is that he came into it with a clear plan. And it wasn't just for one small series that was kind of self-contained. It was for this broad, overarching kind of restoration
right.
of the X-Men, cleaning up some messes that have been made after years, like I said, years and years and years of all these changes to canon and all of these different reboots and all this kind of thing. And him just literally going through and cleaning all that up, bringing everything together and saying, okay, here's the rules. Here's why this happened. Here's why that happened. Here's why this is who this character is. This is how powerful they are. And this is what they can do. Because now there's a clear path also, if they choose to go this way, for the cinematic universe with X-Men going forward. Because we already know, Kevin Feige said there's still a long way out from X-Men. So if we don't get X-Men for 5 years, that's plenty of time to lay out a bunch of storyline for this new path of the X-Men under Hickman.
No, it really, really is. To the fact, like you said, he literally laid out like diagrams and like schematics almost and definitions, like full on dictionary, encyclopedia type stuff. Like, that's what this term means. This happened then because of this. Like, literally drawings and blueprints, essentially.
If you take all of them that he put together, you could basically have like an X-Men index.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people were kind of annoyed by that, it seemed. I thought it was very clever because, like anything, it was 50-50. I feel like it was kind of split, but I thought it was brilliant. And like you said, it's a template for even writers like who come on after him. Be like, look, this is what I did. You're writing the book now. It's between you and Marvel if you want to change it, but everything's here if you want to continue this path.
Yeah, I just don't. I think that anyone who would get upset with that, you just have to realize how much he had to do. To accomplish what he was trying to do as far as storytelling. He had a lot of things to answer because of all the different books, all the different things that have been done in X-Men. He had a lot of things to clean up.
Well, the X-Men too, like, they are they're their own like freaking universe in itself. Like, they are so massive and there's so much, like mythos and depth there and characters to pull from. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. That is easily one of the hardest, comic book titles and universes to reboot, just because there's so much harder than like even Spider-Man. I would even say even more than Batman, because you're talking about a team here. It's not just like a hero and his rogues. And there's so many different angles and just, a lot of things. So I applaud him. I think he did a very good job.
Incredible job. And like you said, I'm really excited to see where he goes with it.
But that leads me, that's my turn now.
All right, so now you're up.
I'm going to go to film. And the Joker.
Yes.
The Joker.
Yes.
Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker. I love this movie so much. Now, we knew from the trailers, I think both of us were like, this is probably going to be amazing. Just by the trailers alone. But I personally didn't know to the extent until we were in the theater. Like, there were so many times where I was literally looking at the screen, like, what I could only imagine was like a dumbfounded face. I'm like, what am I watching right now? It did such a good job of letting you in to, this guy who clearly has a mental illness, seeing his slow fall into madness and doing it in such a way where you're just like, what is happening? Like, I think the slow burn of the turn, I think, was great because there were so many unsettling moments in that film where you're like, oh, like, you didn't really expect it, and it, like when you watch something that's so disturbing, you don't really have a reaction, just kind of put something in your stomach. You're just like, like, and there was so much like that. And this movie had a lot of controversy initially around it with there was like threats, like terrorist threats with it, the opening weekend and stuff like that, and then that they were saying it was promoting violence. But I think and even you have been very vocal. I don't think it, in watching it, I see the reasons for concerns, but I don't think it was promoting that in any way.
No,
it was basically just allowing you to see someone's descent into madness and like the effects that society possibly has on that as well.
Sure,
you know what I mean? And it's a villain. It's a villain story. I don't think you could, because I think that's a lot of the times people are like, they did that with Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad. They're like, she's not a role model. It's like, no crap.
Yeah,
she's
kidding.
A suicidal villain. Why would Harley Quinn be a role model for young girls? If she's a role model for young girls, you're doing something wrong parenting. So I feel like with this movie, a lot of people were kind of, trying to put all those agendas on it as well. And I didn't see it that way. It's a movie. You know what I mean? It's entertainment. It's the Joker first and foremost. So going in, you should know you're going to see some stuff, especially rated R, because the Joker is easily one of the most sadistic villains in all of comics.
But that's the biggest thing.
That's
the biggest thing. That was my biggest response to it. It's like, guys, have you never read or seen the Joker?
Yeah.
Do you not know who the character is? You have to be living under not even a rock. You've got to be living on another planet to not understand they're telling a story about the Joker. Any story about the Joker that goes into any depth whatsoever is going to get disturbing at some point because he's a deranged psychopath. So, yeah, he's a murderous maniac. Of course you're going to have disturbing moments. Of course you're going to have violent moments. And for you to, it was brilliant. And I think it was really, for you to be able to tell that story well, it was the only thing that you could do would be to put some levels of social critique in there. That's just saying this is part of the dynamic. And even if it doesn't create these types of people, that it certainly facilitates it.
For sure.
Certainly doesn't help, right? That these things can and do go on occasionally. But most importantly, it's just storytelling.
Yes to all your points, but I would even, for me personally, I took away like almost a positive message for it. Again, I can't talk for anyone else. For me, though, like you see that like how much of society had an impact on him, turning bad essentially. All the lady on the bus that was mean to him, he was just trying to be nice to that kid. She's like, don't play with my kid, when he wasn't doing anything. Or the people on the train that thought he was laughing at them, where he's like, no, look, I have a card, I have a mental illness, I can't control my laughter. There were so many beats like that where it's like, just be nice to one another, and you literally could save lives. You don't even know, like, because like to the whole Jokers, they say it in the movie, they say it in The Killing Joke, it just takes one bad day to make someone go AWOL essentially. So you don't know if that guy walking out of Walmart, you're saying, good morning, sir, and that brightens them up or something like that. So I took it in a positive way, actually. I don't, that's just me, but I'm like, it made me want to be nicer to people instead of just being caught up in my own personal life every day. It just takes a handshake, a nice gesture, a smile, something. You don't know. So
I totally agree with you. I think it was a twofold message. That's what I walked out with. I walked out with a twofold message, which is great storytelling, in my opinion. Which is one, these things like the lady on the bus, how she was rude to him. You might have some people that look at go, oh, nobody would act like that. Bull crap. I've been present and seen people do stuff like that.
For sure.
These things do happen in the world all the time. People behave like that. They behave rudely and unkindly and even cruelly for no reason at all sometimes. Well, we live in a world where the reality is that has, over time, that level of indifference and just us treating other human beings as if, you're of less importance to me and what I want or what I'm doing right now. This narcissistic behavior and treatment and the subsequent treatment of each other that's rooted in that, it has an effect. There are consequences to these things, and we are seeing some of the consequences in reality, in the real world we live in. That's just true. And it doesn't mean that there's a bunch of people running around going on murderous rampages because of it, but it does have manifestations. And so that is something, it's an extreme take on that concept that they were obviously addressing in the film. So that's where I think both of us would say that's where we kind of understand why some people might have some reservations. But, how else are you supposed to address it? Right? Like if you're going to address it, you got to just address it. It's just that's what film is for.
That and like, we brought up earlier, it's the Joker.
Yeah, it's the Joker. And you're doing it through a character that already that's what he is. But the other side of it is the lesson to take away from that. It's like, okay, well, if I can't look at that and say, okay, well, these things do go on and they're not good, then I'm not going to then get the lesson from it, which is that, well, maybe we should stop doing that. Maybe we should behave differently. Maybe we should start being more thoughtful about how we treat each other and, whether or not we're...
Wouldn't that be something,
what a novel idea. Just being more considerate towards each other and just thoughtful about, the human being in front of you, that they're a human being who has, struggles and has their own things just like you do. And that's equally as important to your own. And so finding the willingness to say, okay, hey, let's just do better, just as a collective. Let's just do better
as a people.
All of that, the criticism, stuff like that. I think some of it was projecting, in my opinion, and some of it's just pure politics. And so I kind of shrugged it off pretty quickly.
But I think one thing everyone can agree on, and one of the main reasons, it also made one of my top 5 for 2019, Joaquin Phoenix's performance was insane.
Absolutely brilliant.
Incredible. It is one of the best performances I've ever seen in film, period.
Easily.
Like, again, I know everyone's saying it. I'm also going to say it. If he doesn't win Best Actor next year, robbed all day. What other performance would be able to rival that this past year? I can't even think of one that would stand next to that. Like, it was so... Because you have good performances, right? But then you have the performances where you're like, oh no, you're just that person. Like we were joking on a previous episode. It's like, oh no, he literally, it's like something has to be like not all there in real life probably, because you can't act that good. No one can act that good. That is too real.
If you didn't walk away from that slightly concerned for Joaquin Phoenix, I'm not sure you were watching the same movie. So
good, and the writing is... I could go on and on. Enough good things. It's Batman. It's the Joker. I just, so I love... Joker's my favorite villain. Joaquin Phoenix did a brilliant job. Todd Phillips directed the hell out of it, wrote the hell out of it. All the way around. Easy, no-brainer, top 5 for me.
This is the one thing that I made an adjustment to my list on.
Okay.
And Joker was not originally in my top 5, and I had to bump it and flip it, because there was 2 things that were pretty close.
Oh, so he is on your top 5.
So this also landed.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull it, and then this also landed, because after thinking about it, I was like, how can it not? It's, in my opinion, this is the greatest comic book driven film ever made.
Right.
For me, this lands as the greatest comic, as far as an actual film and a storytelling, performances, everything combined. This was the greatest. My favorite. I'll say my favorite.
I think that's fair. Even if people don't agree, or if I don't agree, I mean, I can't really fault you for that. That's like solid pick.
So I was like, I can't not have it in the top 5. So this goes into my top 5 for all the reasons we mentioned. Todd Phillips just did such an incredible job writing and directing this thing. He just absolutely crushed it. Crushed it.
Yeah.
The cinematography was beautiful. The score.
Oh, the score was great.
I'm still listening to the score.
Does it give you goosebumps that we're getting a second one? They're continuing.
Again, we've talked about it already, and I'm not sure what to think about it. As long as the same team comes back,
I have reservations as well.
Then I'm confident that they will do a good job with it. But for now, I'm just going to kind of just relish the fact that we got the first one, and that it was as remarkable as it was. And if the second one is anywhere near as good, then we will all be.
It comes out tomorrow digitally, so you could download it to stream it tomorrow.
I'm ready. My body's ready.
I was talking to my wife. She hasn't seen it, and I'm like, this is because we're gonna have the 2 weeks coming up here. I'm like, that's easily one of I got the brand new Samsung TV, the Dolby Atmos surround sound. We're gonna get someone to watch our daughter, and we're gonna Joker it up.
Wait till she's sleeping.
No, Tim. No. We got to go all out with this. Okay, we got to Blair. We're gonna put that on 50. I don't want to worry about waking her up.
You got an entire night plan. Okay. It's so good. So that lands on both of our lists of the top 5 things, top 5 favorite things, geeky things of 2019.
And that means you're up next.
All right. So I'm going to go television.
Okay.
And I'm going to go something that is very current and relevant, and something that should be obvious at this point.
Is it? Am I going to be shocked?
I don't. If you are, then you don't know me at all.
All right.
But it is, of course, The Mandalorian. I know. Shocking.
I am shook.
The Mandalorian and the return of just classic OG Star Wars to the fandom in a new and fresh way. Every week has been so different and fun, and introduced new characters. We just got this past episode, episode 6, where we had Bill Burr show up and play a fun character.
So good.
We had the Twi'lek characters, the 2 Twi'lek characters, which they kind of annoyed me a little bit. I'll be honest with you, but that's their classic behavior, so I get it. So it's like
stuff
fine.
like that. I forgive the cheesiness or the
I'm willing to overlook it.
Yeah.
But the episode as a whole was directed so well.
Yep.
That scene where the Mandalorian is coming through the tunnel and the lights are flashing and he's disappearing.
The Batman scene?
The Batman scene? Except for they did it way better. It was so cheesy when they did it with Batman.
Oh, from Batman.
He's like,
the Nolan Batman. Yeah.
It was a little bit cheesy in the Batman one, but they did it really well. But the show week after week is just so good, and there's so much red meat, and there's so much fan service in there that it also is providing so much new hope. Oh, see what I did there? That wasn't intentional. Full circle.
Yep.
It just provides so much fresh hope for Star Wars going forward.
100%.
Especially us leading into episode 9 here in the next couple days. So I can't say enough fun, good things about this show. And I'm gonna throw a little tag on in there. This is gonna go on my honorables, but I'm gonna tag on there. But just Disney plus the streaming service as a whole.
That's fair.
I just think that Disney has done a good job. Not everything on there is for everyone. Obviously, there's something for everybody. But there's been like some of the other stuff, just like the Imagineering story and some of these other things they've been tagging on there. But obviously, The Mandalorian is the big piece, and I just love this series so much.
I'm right there with you. Now, this was gonna be in my top 5. It's like right there. I'm actually purely not gonna choose it. That way we could just talk about more different stuff. So I'm gonna leave it off. Okay. So you're already talking about. So I'm gonna leave it off. It was right. It wanted right there. I'm gonna leave it off. But I love it. It's really, really good.
Awesome.
Because it's like you said, it's bringing that classic Star Wars feel. But I think that's what's been missing from the new Star Wars movies ever since Disney started putting out new Star Wars movies. This is what I think people initially wanted, this kind of tone and feel with references to the original trilogy, all the legacy characters, even as far as bringing the original sets back from like A New Hope, and using them in this series.
Incredible.
The Mandalorian, brand new character, Mando, so good. He's only, we're 6 episodes in at the time of shooting this podcast. And I don't even care. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters already. He's only been in 6.
It's understandable.
It's just so good. And the crazy thing about it too is you never see his face.
Right.
Literally, almost anyone could play him and you wouldn't know. But at the same time, you couldn't, because I think Pedro Pascal is doing such a great job with it. Even this is gonna sound dumb, but the way he tilts his head, the movements, just the body language he portrays through that suit, along with the inflection of his voice, is so good that I'm like, wow, this is
even just the beats of his silence.
Yeah.
Where people start antagonizing him or questioning him, or they ask him a question and he just sits there. Just the beats they use are just so well done, so that you know when he's angry, when he's about to assault someone,
which says a lot about the editing of the show and the pacing as well. Just
everything about it is
so
really well
good. Favreau, you could tell he's a big time Star Wars fan. He voiced the character in Solo. Now he's showrunner for this series, tag teaming it with Dave Filoni, who, as any Star Wars fans know, he is the freaking god of Star Wars right now. He basically is I got this, Lucas. I got this. And I would even say is doing a better job. I don't even care. I think obviously Lucas created it.
I just want to disavow any knowledge of that statement. To all Star Wars fans.
I'm going to go out there. This is my personal opinion. I'm not taking anything away from Lucas. He created the franchise. He gave us the original trilogy, which will forever be beloved, all these characters. But I will say, Dave Filoni with the Clone Wars, with Rebels, with his involvement in this.
Yeah.
Yes. So good.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to distance myself. That was a swift kick to the nuts to the creator of Star Wars.
No, I'm not. Again, I'm not taking anything away from him. I like me some Dave Filoni, man.
I understand what you're saying. I think each one, and I think that's what's so fascinating about Dave Filoni, is that he is so well versed on Star Wars. And to the point to where, George Lucas himself said he knows more about Star Wars than I do. Right. That, which is an insane thing. Mm-hmm. But it enabled him, I think, and has really put him in the perfect position to be the one that adds that next chapter to the Star Wars universe.
For sure.
And it really makes me wonder, is it going to make it, and this isn't to knock anybody's work, anyone else's work, from episode 7, Force Awakens, all the way to Rogue One and so forth. It's just, I'm really wondering if that period from A Force Awakens through The Rise of Skywalker, if that's going to be viewed in the long run, as if they really turn Filoni loose on the storylines and to let him and Jon Favreau kind of shape the Star Wars universe going forward after this.
Right.
If this is going to be looked at as almost kind of like a blip, you know what I mean? Like something that gets kind of hopped over. You know what I mean? And the fans start viewing it as like, okay, we finished the Return of the Jedi, and then there was this time, but we hop over that when we go over to here to Mandalorian and then beyond.
The Star Wars fandom is so fickle though too, because they did that with the prequels as well, which everyone was. Because it's funny, a lot of people still hate those prequels.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, George Lucas ruined his own franchise.
It's true.
So,
again, even how he made changes to the original trilogy, and he won't release the originals.
No. So I think even to my point, like, once Filoni came, I haven't really heard anyone say a bad thing about Filoni. Like, Clone Wars is so well loved. They're bringing it back. He's created tons of new characters. He brought Darth Maul back because he gives so much fan service. He's like, oh, Darth Maul was really cool, and he should have lasted longer than 15 minutes in the film.
For sure.
Here he is. I can't give him to you in live action yet, but I'll give him to you in my animated series. And then Rebels, and now freaking Mandalorian, and who knows? Lucasfilm, Disney, Iger, Kathleen. Give him Old Republic. Give it to him and let him bring us Darth Revan or just Revan, Malik. I want it. I need it so bad.
Yeah. And it really does have me, like I said, it's created a renewed excitement for me, and I think a lot of people, a lot of Star Wars fans, of what's going to follow along with The Mandalorian, because now there's rumors of a new secret Star Wars series that's coming to Disney Plus that's in the works. That's not announced, but there's rumors coming out now, and it's already got you like, oh, what could this one be?
How crazy is it that because we got Obi-Wan coming with Ewan McGregor reprising his role, we already know that. So we have Mandalorian and Obi-Wan, and then this potential third one. How crazy would it be if the Disney Plus, it's what's the flagship of Star Wars now, because it's also going to hold Clone Wars, the brand new season, Rebels. Who knows if that may or may not continue to get revived somehow, and it's going to hold all the beloved properties for Star Wars. What a switch that would be, like a 180,
and maybe even do the reversed order of what the MCU is doing.
And
do the reverse order where they kick off a whole bunch of new stuff on the streaming, and then it leads into
the possibilities are endless with this, really.
It really is. But long story short, I think for both of us is that The Mandalorian is fantastic, and it's the best. It's our favorite thing that Disney has done with Star Wars.
Easily.
And it has created brand new excitement for what they've got going forward.
This is the way.
This is the way.
All right, so now it's my turn.
Yep, you're up.
So I am going to stay in the TV world, or the streaming world, rather.
Okay.
DC Universe app, Young Justice, Outsiders.
Oh, wow.
As you know,
really?
Yeah. As you know, or the Variant Nation knows, I am a massive fan of Young Justice.
Yes.
I was one of the advocates for Bring It Back, and when they announced that they were bringing back season 3 for the DC Universe streaming app, I was like, oh, for that alone, I will get DC Universe. I am sold, because it's so good. It's one of those cartoon series too that it's not one and done.
Yeah.
You have to. It's like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or anything like that.
Right.
You have to watch every episode, because it's every season is one big arc. It's one story.
Right.
And they continued with Young Justice Outsiders. There was a little bit of a time jump. We got a bunch of new characters. There was a lot of plot twists in this season. We got a new team, the Outsiders. There was some stuff. I don't want to give spoilers, but there was some cool stuff going on with Batman, Black Lightning, lots of things that get revealed at the end of the season. Some Dark Side, just all the way around. Really, really fun series. One of, for me, obviously, Batman the Animated Series is the bar.
Right, sure.
For animation, for pretty much everything. That's my end-all be-all. It's what got me into comic books. So that and the Bruce Timm DCAU, the animated universe, I love that stuff. This is right under that, if not right there with it. I think it's that good of storytelling. There's a reason why for years all of us fans were like, continue. They left us on this freaking cliffhanger. Continue. And at the end of this season 3, it's there's still some stuff to be answered. So I think we're gonna get a season 4. And I'm just so excited. 'Cause this is another thing. I've been watching this series for 8 years now. I think it's been on. Because it had the first 2 seasons, then it went
including the gaps.
Including the gaps. Yeah. I bought them on Blu-ray. That's how much I like them for the special features and stuff. And it did not disappoint, because the great thing about it was not only did they bring it back, they brought it back with the exact same creative team.
Right.
So the same showrunner,
which was important.
Very important. Actually, you'll appreciate this. The same showrunner for Young Justice is the same guy who brought us Gargoyles for Disney,
Oh,
which makes a lot of sense because that's
great.
another amazing cartoon
Yeah.
series. So basically what I'm saying is whatever he touches is gold.
Well, I'm rewatching Gargoyles.
Oh, I need it. It's
now
in my watch
on
list.
Disney
It's in my
Plus.
watch
So
list.
yeah, no, that's amazing.
But yeah, this was easily, just because the way they did it too was really cool. They basically broke it up into 2 halves. They would give us like 3 episodes a week because there was like 20 something episodes in the season. So they gave us 3 episodes a week until summer. Then they took like a 3-month break for summer, and then they capped it off like a few months ago. So I kind of like that they were doing it, kind of giving it to us in chunks, like 3-part bursts.
Right.
So they're 20 to 22 minutes long each. So we basically had an hour every week, and I'm like, yeah, solid. That's the way to do it.
This is the way.
This is the way. Yes, I have spoken.
Yeah, I knew how much you were loving the return, the new season. But I didn't realize it was in your top 5.
Dude, yeah, because
year.
they introduced a lot of new characters in this season as well, and we got some cool Deathstroke. Again, I don't want to get too spoilery because this is a series that it's for kids, obviously, but it's also it's like Batman the Animated Series. It's for kids, but it's also for adults, and they don't talk down to the kid audience.
Yeah.
It's very much you need to follow along. You need to be paying attention to what every character is doing because that's going to come up like 3 episodes later.
Right.
There's going to be a plot twist, and I dig it. Season 4, I want it. Please give it to me.
Yeah, I can't speak to it that much. I know how much you love it. I can't speak to it that much because I've watched previous seasons. I have not watched the new season yet. My boys, they love Young Justice,
So
so
good.
I enjoyed watching that. We watched it together, the first 2 seasons, but the 3rd season I haven't gotten into yet.
Have they watched it? Do you know?
They have not.
So
They haven't watched it yet.
During that break, perfect time to
Yeah,
binge.
so we might just hang out and just binge watch it. Which was kind of my thought process.
Right.
Let it play out and then we'll binge watch it because I know they're going to be like chomping at the bit.
But now, ball's back in your court.
All right.
I think this is your last one too, right?
This is my last
Okay,
one.
You got one more and I got one more.
This is my
Okay.
last one, and it's a comic. We're going back to comics.
Okay.
And it is the continued run on the Immortal Hulk and what Al Ewing has been doing, continued to do and roll out with the Immortal Hulk. It's in its 2nd year, obviously, but it's just, in my opinion, it's one of the best things that Marvel has done in a very long time.
It's so fresh.
It's so and it's with the Hulk, it was very much starting to feel like people were running out of ideas of what to do with him. You know what I mean? Greg Pak did such a good job with him.
Really good job, yeah.
With Planet Hulk and World War Hulk and some of the other things he did.
Totally awesome.
The totally awesome Hulk. And there was some, back, a little bit of, I guess, argument about.
I think I said awesome. It's awesome. There we go.
I don't know. I like awesome. But, there was a little bit of, fan division on the Totally Awesome Hulk. Some people liked it. Some people didn't like it at all. But it was starting to feel a little bit like, even in the MCU, like they weren't really sure what to do with the Hulk.
Don't get me started. That's
That's a different topic, to be fair. But in comics, even, it was starting to feel like, they weren't really sure where to go with Hulk and what to do. And Al Ewing, what he has been able to do, and that entire creative team, what they've been able to do with the Immortal Hulk in not just bringing a fresh look at the Hulk with this kind of horror vibe. But don't get me started on the artwork, and how much Alex Ross has contributed with the covers. My gosh, it's just so beautiful. But just even the vintage look to the artwork, but this overarching look at the character's entire history, right? And revisiting with all these different characters and incorporating it and doing it in the context of this Jekyll and Hyde story between Banner and the Hulk. It's just so good, just all the way across the board. And like I said, in my opinion, I think it's one of the best things Marvel's put out in quite a while.
Oh yeah, I think most people would agree with you on that.
It's up there, and for me, in the top 5 books that Marvel has published in the last decade.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's just really, really well done.
But again, I think
and
a lot of people
I'm a
agree.
huge Hulk fan.
Yes.
On top of that, so to be full disclosure, I am a massive Hulk fan. So to see it in the hands of a really capable writer, and again, that's not to take anything away from what Greg Pak did. Believe me, he did an amazing job. But to see it, to see Al Ewing really do something really fresh and unique with it, and pay tribute to the character's history in the way that he's done, in like this way that's also just fun and creepy at times. So I just love it.
No, yeah, it's great. I mean, it's fun when you can take a character that's so popular like the Hulk. There's been so many iterations and different comics and versions of him over the years, and then find something that feels fresh and new. And something so, like, again, a lot of the best ideas are the ones like, oh, clearly, why didn't we do that like 20 years ago?
Right.
Where like the Hulk is always like, he's a monster. You know, that Stan Lee said it. He's like a guy who turns into a monster. So why not do a horror comic book with a monster, the Hulk? You know what I mean? And it's, you know, it's body horror too, which is really cool because you get all these weird monsters and creature things where, you know, the bodies are transforming into these weird things, and they got growths and stuff coming out of here with the art, and then getting into the psyche of like Banner, like you said, and the Hulk, and like the duel between them. And it's a fun book. It's one of the best Hulk books to come out, period. I think it's going to be one of those books that's going to stand when you're doing a top 10 Hulk stories.
Right.
This is probably going to be in there.
I agree 100%. I like I said, I think it could rank pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it's all said and done.
Yes.
It's just being, and we'll see how it culminates and comes together in the end, but it's just been so good and so well done and such a fun, fresh take on the character.
We're not the only ones to think that. I mean, fans have literally been eating. This has been one of Marvel's flagship books this year.
Yeah,
like,
I know I'm not alone.
Yeah, no,
so I'm very comfortable in saying it.
This and I guess my last pick, will be right up there as far as Marvel's flash picks. My last pick is a comic book as well.
Okay.
And it's Donny Cates' Absolute Carnage.
Yes.
Which he's been doing some awesome stuff. He's been doing Venom, Guardians. He's going to be doing
Cosmic Ghost Rider,
Thor in the new year. But he had the Absolute Carnage event this year. We've talked about it on the show.
Mm-hmm.
We covered the entire story on the main variant episodes. And again, everyone knows I'm a big Spider-Man fan, big Symbiote Carnage fan, because I grew up with Spider-Man in the 90s. That's when they were all introduced. So, you know, we had them in the animated series with all the action figures at KB Toys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was just, Donny Cates is such a fan, and you could tell he's going back to all the 90s, like Carnage stories and stuff like that, or even the Venom stories like Lethal Weapon, Maximum Carnage, all that fun symbiote love from the 90s. And it's like a love letter to that. And just, you know, bringing back Cletus Cassidy. Cletus has been dead for a while. He brought him back, and now he's basically like the symbiote god trying to bring back Null because he's just all about blood and death and gore. He's like, I just want to bring him back to kill everyone because I'm a crazy psychopath serial killer. The fight between the two of them, how it end, all like the question marks now. Eddie Brock has a son. He apparently has these crazy symbiote powers. We don't know to what extent, but like it even seems like they're psychic symbiote powers because he just, you know, he basically uses the Force. He raises his hand like Baby Yoda and poof, like things explode. Just so good. Even Spider-Man in the book was really good. It's some of the best Eddie Brock writing I've seen in a while. Definitely some of the best Carnage writing across the board. Basically, anything Donny Cates does, especially as of the last several years, has been great. This has just been my personal favorite because I am a really big Spider-Man fan, and I love the symbiotes. And the symbiotes tend to be one of those things where it's like they just use them because they know it'll sell. And with this, obviously they knew it would sell, but it was so good at the same time. Yeah. Like it was actually a really good story. So easily, you know, one of my favorite comic book series of 2019. Yeah,
and ironically, it actually is right in line. It's very similar and tonally and in approach to Immortal Hulk in that they are looking at kind of the broader historical comic book entries for the characters themselves. So it's a lot of fan service. It's a lot of, you know, kind of overviews of the characters while adding some new things. And they're both horror. They're very much horror themed and as far as their tones. So, you know, it's pretty interesting that both of those two comics, Immortal Hulk and Carnage, I would think both of you and I would both agree they're up there, Marvel's best books that they put out this year,
easily
along with Jonathan Hickman's work. Those three, I think, are their best books that they put out this year, for us anyway. And Immortal Hulk and Absolute Carnage both had a lot of similarities, which is pretty interesting.
I've again big fan of all this. I just love when writers add to the history, and you know, with Null, because all his stuff is intertwining between Venom, Carnage, is going to go into Thor, Guardians, and it's so smart, and just deep diving and adding new stuff. I love what he's been doing with it.
It's really awesome stuff. And I think over this past year, we've both been kind of looking for like comics that are changing things,
Mm-hmm.
that are doing something that's fresh and new. And I'm comic fans were always doing that. But this year, there's been we kind of had a little bit of a time period where it was like you were wanting to see some things get cleaned up in comics.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel went through a downturn. DC kind of similarly before that. And then DC cleaned things up with Rebirth. And it's nice to see Marvel is really starting to move in a direction where you're seeing some books come out now. That's some really good work.
Yeah, for sure.
Really cool stuff. But that wraps up each of our top 5.
That is true. I have so many honorable mentions. I don't.
Well, give us 3.
Give us 3. Oh,
give us 3.
man.
I got 4. No,
Okay.
I got 3. I got 3.
You know,
I got 3 because I already mentioned it.
I don't need to elaborate. I'm just going to go through really quick.
Go for it.
My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, Batman Beyond on Blu-ray, the Shazam movie, Spider-Man Far From Home, the Detective Comics 1000 came out this year.
Oh, yeah.
Really
That's
good.
a great one.
Deceased was a great Elseworlds type story. I loved it. John Carpenter's Joker comic, Superman Batman, Power Rangers TMNT just came out. Really good.
God.
I have so much stuff.
You do have a long one.
Castlevania, I don't think it was released in 2019, but I watched it in 2019 and I loved it. I can go on.
You could go on.
Yeah.
I know. So my 3 honorable mentions that I'm gonna miss. There are more than this. Because like you, I would also add Detective Comics 1000. I would also add a couple others. But the 3 things that came out this year that I have to make honorable mentions of are The Boys, Amazon series.
Yes, that one.
Just such a fresh take on superhero genre and so well executed. It's definitely not for young people.
No.
It is brutal, but it's really good. The other one is the Rise of the Resistance experience and getting to go and just live a day in Star Wars. Just everything about that for me was like, I said it on the shows when we were covering it. It's next level nerddom.
Right.
The Jedi lightsaber experience and building a lightsaber to this new long form story attraction with Rise of the Resistance that is unlike anything we have ever seen. I just loved it so much. I thought it was so cool. And then the last thing that I will mention is the announcement by Amazon of the new Lord of the Rings series actually being based in the Second Age. Which is, based around the storylines and the information that we get from the Silmarillion. And I'm so excited about that series. It's hard to articulate in the short period of time. But just to have to know that we're going to get to see those stories explored and in a greater way and see the Rings of Power forged and all that stuff. That was like a major peak for me. Obviously, that's going to get capitalized on when we actually get the series. But just the announcement made the top 5 for me. But that's all I'll mention from my honorable mention, even though there's a much longer list, but we can't cover it all today.
But that's going to bring this episode to a close.
It is.
Last episode of 2019, but we're going to see everyone in 2020.
Yes, we will see you guys on January 10th, 2020. And until then, wish you guys all a very happy holidays and a very happy new year. Arris?
And we'll see you guys next time when we talk about all things comics.